What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. This is season 6, episode 3. And baby, that press conference, Lisa, it was a fool. It was so bad. Oh my God, that press conference, no ma'am. Whitney is a child. Like that temper tantrum at the end of the episode, I was like, ooh, girl, she whacked you and you couldn't handle it, okay? And Brian, when we got to get that spirit of people pleasing up off of you, you got to get it off of you, girl, because it really does not serve you. But let's get into this video. So y'all know sometimes before we get in to the review, we get a little spicy, just a little bit. And I don't have a spicy corner or anything to talk to you guys about. I did do a standalone spicy corner. Here is the thumbnail. And y'all already know the link will be in the description box below if you are interested. I talked about the new taglines. My favorite was Mary's. Okay, but if you want to know how I feel about anybody else's tagline, please, go look at that video. I also talked about Whitney and, her speaking out about the redhead comment that Lisa threw at her. And I also talked about Lisa being on Watch What Happens Live. Okay, so let's get into the review. All right, y'all. So let's get into this review. So the episode opens up and we are at Premiere, which is Vita Tequila's lounge. We see Lisa, her husband John, her assistant Sage, and the staff. And she's telling them like, hey, move this over here, move this over here. We need to get this ready. We need to do this. We find out that it seems like Lisa is throwing some type of networking event. And it seems as though she has invited Steve Carell, Jason Schwartzman, Corey Smith, and Ramsey Youssef. Now, Corey and Ramsey, I seen Ramsey in a TV show series that I think he had with like HBO or Stars, but I think it was HBO. And then Jason Schwartzman is funny to me because like a few days ago, I watched this it was a biopic, but a funny biopic about this polka singer who defrauded people. He like scammed old people out their money, and Jason was in it, but Jack Black was the main character, and he was actually really funny. And then everyone knows Steve Carell from, The Office, Despicable Me, and other like well-known movies and things of that nature. So she's like, we have to make sure this area is great for this person and that person. In the confessionals, Lisa basically says that, after Amy's party, she was exhausted. She was like, it was too much and I'm just exhausted, but I got things to do, people to see, and I work with big name people, so I got to make sure I show them my best. She ends up saying she's also worked with Usher, Daniel Radcliffe, and Forrest Whitaker. And she's just like, I do big things. And then she says in her confessional, I know this sounds a little like, she was like, is this too braggy? But it is true. Now, I will be honest, Lisa does brag a lot, and it is like really annoying after a while, but I also feel like Lisa does that as a way to big up herself, but also counteract the way that the women have dragged her business, because as much as they say Lisa has done that to them, she has received the same energy from them too. Like they've been talking poorly about Vita Tequila since season 1. like let's be honest. And I think in Lisa's mind, she feels as though, well, before Salt Lake City became this show and Real Housewives, I was doing things at Sundance and all these things of that nature. So like, let me talk about those things to let these people know that my business is legit, that I am like who I say I am. But it's not working. It's also doing like the adverse, where it's putting an even further bad taste in people's mouth about you, because in sense of bragging, you're also diminishing the other women, which they do to you and you don't like it. But Lisa even said on Watch What Happens Live that she was going to chill out with that because she realizes that like it's not really helping her. And it's not. Okay? So in her confessional, she also says that she's not really worried about these lawsuits. She was like, they have 6 lawyers on retainer. She was like, I'm not stressed about this situation. Then production ends up showing 6 fictional lawyers. I only knew 4 of them. The other 2 I knew, Like, I vaguely remember. Now, the first guy they showed was the lawyer from Law and Order, and my family is a Law and Order family, so I remembered him. Then there was Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show, then Annalise Keating from How to Get Away with Murder, and then Elle Woods from Legally Blonde. But the other two lawyers, they looked familiar to me, but I couldn't remember what show they were from. And so production flashes those lawyers on the screen, but then they were like, disclaimer, these are not Lisa's lawyers. It definitely feels like production is sticking it to Lisa more so for her wanting to do contract negotiations, because I still don't get why no one told her that she had one smoky eye. Like, that is something you notice when y'all are asking these women questions in the confessionals. Like, somebody could have tapped her on her shoulder and was like, oh girl, you need to fix that, but no one did. On top of that, these lawyers, it just feels like they're like really poking at her this season, and I do think it's from her wanting more money, which I don't think is bad. I think all of them should be, especially the OGs, should be asking for more money because we're on episode 6 and they've been delivering since then. You know, people have been really into this show since season 1. So I do think the girl should be able to ask for more money. But whoever Lisa pissed off in production, they just really letting her have it, okay? So we end up seeing her talk to Sage, and she ends up asking Sage, like, did you get everything ready for my luncheon that's coming up? And Sage is like, yeah. So then we get this flashback scene of Lisa being back at Amy's house and telling Amy, well, hey, I'm having this luncheon. I am inviting you, Mary, Meredith, and Heather to go skeet shooting with me, but the other women will be coming later on. And so Amy was like, oh, that's really big of you to still invite those women, even though you're not in a good place with them. And Lisa's like, I don't know how big you think I'm going to be after this luncheon, because it might not be so big of me. Okay, right? It might not be once the luncheon takes place. So the next scene we have is with Bronwyn and Oscar the Grouch, aka Todd. So like I said, Bronwyn and Todd are at this restaurant. Bronwyn, don't you ever wear this bra and leopard combo ever again. It was so annoying and I was so distracted because I was like, girl, why did you wear this? Mind you, I normally like what Bronwyn wears, so I'm just like, girl, if you wanted your bra to be showing, why couldn't it be like lace, or it could have been lace and black bra, or a lace red bra, or a lace pink bra, but not this Lane Bryant bra. I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. So she's asking Todd, like, do you understand why I brought you here? Like, trying to be flirty with him. And he's giving no. When I tell you he is grumpy Smurf and Oscar the Grouch rolled into one. He's like, he doesn't understand. Bronwyn ends up saying that there's a lot of stuff going on in their house right now. There's a lot of things that they've had to change. She ends up saying Todd has realized that the way that he speaks to her is not the right way, and he's been trying to change it. So they show us a flashback from last season where at the reunion, Todd realized that he speaks to her pretty gruffly. So Bronwyn says he's been making a significant change to speak to her better. I don't see the change. Okay, if you ask me, he's still grumpy and old. Okay, Todd still gives that he's like annoyed with Bronwyn or he's bothered by her. It still gives father-daughter energy. And it's annoying because it's like the first season they were on, I could give them grace. I could give Todd grace, mainly because I'm like, okay, it's his first season. He probably didn't want to do this show, but he's trying to support his wife. Now that we're on season 2, I'm going to need you to start being more engaging and caring on camera, because you know how this goes, sir. Either be like Mary's husband, Robert Sr., and don't be on the show, or 2, be like Shamia's husband, Gerald, and stay in the phone. Either way, I don't want to see you on camera giving annoyed energy when you're around your wife. I don't like it, okay? So she talks about him trying to do better, but she hasn't really made any changes after the reunion. While they're sitting at the table, she's trying to have small talk with him, and she's just like, so how was work? He was like, I took a couple of calls. I did some work. It is what it is. So then Bronwyn shares that she went and visited her dad. And she says, I feel bad when I leave him at the facility, especially when we're in a good mode. He's happy and things of that nature. But then when I look back as to where he was before we put him in the facility, I realized that was the best place for him to be, because trying to navigate this situation with him is kind of impossible and hard. And so we end up finding out that Bronwyn's father, unfortunately, had Alzheimer's. And I'm using the word had because unfortunately the dad passed away, I think, a few months or a month after they finished like wrapping the season. So that's sad, and my condolences to her and her family. But we also find out that her mom also had a brain tumor and needed surgery from that. So she's been going through a lot when it comes to her immediate family. So she's just like, my dad's in this facility. It's a 24-hour care facility. My mom just moved in with us. There's a lot going on at our household. Todd basically says that her dad being in that facility is the best place for him. And I agree, especially when Alzheimer's and dementia gets to a certain point where these people need round the clock care. You can't do that by yourself, okay? So Bronwyn ends up thanking Ty, basically saying, I know you're saying it's fine, but thank you for, allowing my parents to move in, financially supporting my family, i.e. her mom and her dad, helping figure out the logistics of moving around your like schedule and things of that nature. I truly appreciate it. All Todd is saying is it's fine. And I'm just like, all you need to say is I did it because I love you. You don't have to thank me. And that would have just been sweet. But just being like, it's fine. It's just, ugh. I can't. So pretty much she just feels like this year hasn't really even started. It's been like a year since the year has started. It's just been a lot for Bronwyn. So then Todd switches up the conversation and he asks her, how was your conversation with Meredith? We find out 6 hours before they went to this restaurant, Meredith and Bronwyn had a conversation. Unfortunately, I think Meredith's dad passed away due to a similar disease as well. So Bronwyn is confiding in her. And Bronwyn just says, I feel like I'm running a youth hostel. My mom's moved in here. We have Gwen's boyfriend. Gwen is here. It's just a lot going on. And Meredith basically says it's a good thing that you have all of this going on, because when you preoccupy your time or you don't preoccupy your time, your mind begins to dwell on what you can't fix. And Brian was like, you're right, because you can't slow down the progression of Alzheimer's. So she basically says that it was a really good conversation that she had with Meredith. That Meredith says, we've known each other for a long time, but we don't know each other like that. And it was nice to get deep with her. She was like, I feel like maybe she understands me a little bit more. And Todd was like, probably she does, now that you have had this conversation away from the group. So then Bronwyn also says that Meredith informed her that, in this group, people say things. People say mean things, and it is hard to get over, but it's not like you can't get over it. She also brings up that even though Meredith is close with Lisa, she does not feel like that will be a hindrance of their relationship. Todd doesn't understand why Bronwyn wants to like move on with Lisa. Like, he's just like, I don't get why you want to be cool with her or why you allow her to bother you. And Bronwyn basically says, because it bothers me when people don't like me. And that's why I said in the intro that Bronwyn needs to get that spirit of people pleasing up off of her, because it does not serve her, and it's actively, to me, making her look dumb to me. Because I don't understand why it bothers you when people don't like you, but yet you've been itching and seeking out a fight with Lisa. The first episode, girl, you spilled all her tea with that lawsuit. Then you basically are kind of like co-signing what Angie said last season about Lisa having some random man in Park City paying her bills and things of that nature, kind of alluding that she might be having an affair. Then at Amy's party, you went and actively tried to fight with her. You basically told her that you're not mad at Angie, you're mad at me, so let's have the conversation. You wanted a fight with her, then you got the fight, and now that you've had the fight and you don't like how it made you feel, now it bothers you. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. I think what Bronwyn's issue is that Lisa is very vocal about people she don't like. Like, Lisa will tell you, I don't like you, and stand in it. Where Bronwyn is not used to that. Bronwyn is used to people pleasing the way she does with her husband and her mom, where she is used to betraying her own feelings to make everybody feel comfortable. And that does not serve her. And I've also noticed that when she speaks to her mom and her husband, she changes the inflections in her voice. It's very like, well, it just bothers me when people don't like me. But when it's with the other women, well, Lisa, you're very misogynistic. Pay your bills. Like, it's base in her. She elevates her voice. And I'm like, you need to take that energy you have with the women and use it in your personal life with your husband and your mama. Because it's not making sense. So then pretty much she basically says that she wants to make it right in the group. She doesn't want it to be awkward or anything of that nature. And she's just like, I'm not really used to people not liking me. And I don't know, there might be a lot of people that don't like me. And Todd said, of course, there's not a lot of people that don't like you. And she's like, who? And he's like, the people on the Facebook. And I said, that's not what she was talking about. So he's just kind of like, the things that Lisa has said is unforgivable. So I don't understand why you want to be cool with her. But then I'm also looking at Todd and Bronwyn like, but if Bronwyn can get over what Angie said about her last season, then she can get over what Lisa has said about her. And I feel like for Todd, it might be the whole Gwen situation with Lisa having a conversation with Gwen's father's family because she has this relationship with them. But for Bronwyn, it seems like she's really harping on this necklace and things of that nature. Because let's be honest, Angie's read to Bronwyn was a way harsher than whatever Lisa has tweeted out online or even said to Bronwyn. And let's read what Angie said last season. Bronwyn seems nice. I like her business plan, marrying a guy who has one foot in the grave and one foot on a banana peel, but I like mine better. I'd rather be self-made. She's nice, but she doesn't listen because her ears are stitched down to her face so tight she can't hear anything. She wears a hot dog outfit to remind us she's sucked her way to the top. But you are cool with Angie now, so I don't know why we can't be cool with Lisa, okay? So then basically she tells Todd, how do I allow this person to be so vocal and loud about not liking me and it doesn't drive me crazy? And Todd says, I doubt you do. Basically said, I don't think you're going to be ever okay with her being so vocal with not liking you. And I'm just like, that's really the issue. Is Lisa is very vocal when she doesn't like somebody. She'll let them know, and Bronwyn is not used to that. But I'm also looking at Bronwyn like the numbers are in your favor. Even the fans rock with you right about now. You know, you have Angie on your side, Whitney on your side, and Mary on your side. Like the only person that Lisa really has is actually, well, only two people it seems she has is Brittany and Meredith, but the numbers are in your favor because Heather's going to join y'all fraction soon. So being so concerned about people not liking you doesn't make sense to me, other than you want to like Lisa or you want Lisa to like you so y'all can be cool again. But I don't know. Okay. But for real, especially after she had that conversation with her mom, she really needs to get that spirit of people pleasing up off. So the next thing we have is with Angie and her dad. And I'm not going to lie, it made me sad. So we see Angie at her dad's house. Mind you, for him to be 89 years old, he looked good, okay? Got his mind together, living alone, got his faculties, it's a blessing, all right? 89, you damn near 100 to me, So she's at her dad's house. She's visiting him. She brings this really pretty orchid and fruit to just come hang out with him. Mind you, if you do have orchids, don't water them. Put ice cubes in there. They last longer. That's what my mama taught me. And it's actually very effective. So she's basically just there to visit her dad. They end up drinking Greek coffee that he was making on the stove. And then she just talks about, like, my dad means a lot to me. She was like, she still feels like a little girl that needs her father. She was like, he's the first person I call in the morning and the last person I call at night. And he has this really beautiful rose bush in front of his house. She was like, when I see that rose bush, it just lets me know that I have another year with my dad, and it just means a lot to me. So while they're sitting on her father's couch and drinking coffee and eating the fruit, he ends up letting her know, like, oh, I found this old photo book album. I want to show it to you. So we end up seeing these old pictures of her father, and Angie ends up saying, why weren't you smiling? Were like the camera slow back then? And it's a picture, I think, of the father and his mother. He's like 12 years old, and the daddy basically said, girl, there was nothing to smile about. Like, we were serious because life was tough at that time. So then Angie was like, I remember you telling me about the soldiers, and the dad is like, oh, you mean the Germans? So the father lived in this village in Crete where it was invaded by the Germans during World War II, and he just talks about how we were cold, we were hungry. The men in the village tried their best to put up a resistance, but it wasn't effective. Like, we really didn't have anything by the time the Germans came and raided their village. He was like, they burned everything. And I was like, dang. And then he talks about how, it was just a lot. He was like, I still miss that place. I still think of it. And she's just like, he ends up saying, you can't take the country out of the boy. And I was like, if y'all don't take that man back to Greece and let him live out his last years, just being in Greece. Like, I felt so bad. And Angie talked about how her dad did a good job in protecting them, not really telling them the stories when they were younger. But when they got older, he started to tell them about what he faced as a child. And she just talks about how it put everything into perspective for her, where she realizes that, I'm over here complaining about getting micro needling for a next event, but my dad has really faced some severe, like real severe hardships. So the dad also talks about how when they came to America, all they had on them were the clothes on their backs. And he was like, they were asking us, like, where are your clothes? And he's like, we have them on. So then she talked about how, like, when they went to Crete as a family, she was so excited to be there and how it was just like a beautiful place. And she felt like it was her second home. And the dad starts to get emotional saying, I think about that place every day, and then she also thanks him about passing down, being Greek and loving being Greek because of her father. And she was just like, your influence you've given to me means so much. And I hope I'm influenced Electra, her daughter, the same way. So they hug and embrace each other. And I'm just like, girl, you and Shine seem to make a lot of money with them hair salons. Go get your daddy an apartment in Greece. And it also puts so much stuff into perspective where we always think like those types of things are so far away. But with this government, we know it's here. But, like Jim Crow, World War II, like the things that people have faced and those people are still around, it really does make you realize like that stuff wasn't that long ago. Like it was recent. Like case in point, my grandpa, my poppy, he is in his 70s, but I remember as a kid being so annoyed when we would go on like trips or just be around, in South Carolina visiting them, and he would never like go through the drive-throughs still till this day he won't do it. And I remember being like, Poppy, why can't we just go through the drive-through? Like, what is it like? Is it gonna really, like, why can't we just go through the drive-through? And he says, when I was growing up, we weren't allowed to walk through the front doors of restaurants. We had to go through the back door. He said, I don't have to do that no more, so I'm not doing it. And even till to this day, like whenever I'm driving him around, we go into the restaurant. Even if I don't want to go in the restaurant, we're going into the restaurant because his people fought for me to have that opportunity where I don't have to go through the back door of a restaurant. I go through the front. So it's like these conversations are important because it makes you realize that like we have come a long way. Maybe not, but we still got a far way to go. But it's important to respect those people sharing their stories with us. So then we have this scene with Bronwyn and her mom, aka Margaret, aka Muzzy. I feel like if you can't call your mom, there's a problem. Pretty much, Muzzy got a stank attitude. She's sitting in the den and she's doing a crossword puzzle. Bronwyn ends up asking her mom, hey, do you want something to drink? And the mom's like, yeah. So then Bronwyn ends up bringing 2 sodas and the mom is like, these aren't cold. And I'm like, she just got them out of the refrigerator. And Bronwyn was like, well, yeah, I just got them out the fridge. And it's like, no, thank you. No, nothing. You just complaining. And I'm saying this as someone who complains a lot. Okay. But I definitely know how to have manners and that lady don't have them. So while they're sitting there, we find out that Bronwyn's mom has been flying back and forth from Northern California to Utah, basically packing up and trying to get rid of stuff because they're packing up Bronwyn's childhood home. The mom ends up admitting that it has been an emotional situation, unpacking and packing the house. Well, not really unpacking the house, but packing the house because she's opening up wounds that haven't been opened since 25 years ago. And Bronwyn's like, what wounds? Or like what was so emotional about it? And the mom is like, Daddy's office. The mom's just like, I don't know what I can give away or what I can keep. And I'm going to be honest, it doesn't really matter because he does not remember and he's not going to remember because he's losing his memory. So at this point, you just need to keep things that are important to you that symbolize him and pass them down to Gwen and to Bronwyn. Bronwyn ends up saying, I don't think Daddy remembers adult me. And she's getting emotional. And the mom ends up saying, he thinks you are Gwen. The other day he saw her and he was like worried that she wasn't going to finish college, being like, where is she? Like, why is she here? Why isn't she in school? And she was like, I had to explain to him, like, baby, that's Gwen. And so then Bronwyn was like, yeah, but when he sees Gwen, like, he still thinks Gwen is like teeny tiny, like a little toddler. And the mom was like, yes, he does. So then Bronwyn says, I feel like he remembers a time that I'm not most proud of, which was when she got pregnant at BYU and had to drop out of school and went back to home to California. And the dad was like a recorder at the temple, and she was just like, it wasn't a good time for me. It was basically she kind of like put a shame stain on the family. So she's getting emotional saying, I know he's always wanted the best out of me. And then the mom was like, do you think you're not good enough or you're not worthy? And she's like, yeah, I do. And then the mom was like, no, he just wanted the best for you. And then Bronwyn says, I know it took me a longer route to get where I was going, but I got there. And then the mom was like, you couldn't have done it without Todd. And I was like, dang. And Bronwyn was like, without Todd. And granted, I think what the mom is saying is you couldn't have had this lifestyle like this without him. But I'm also like, you need to give your daughter credit because I don't think Todd came into Bronwyn's life until Gwen was like maybe 8 or 9 years old. And now the girl is like 19 or 18. So that means she had to figure her life out in order to meet someone like Todd. And I think they said they met on a business trip. So she got her life together enough to like get a job and take care of her daughter and herself. So give the lady some type of credit. So then she was like, yeah, you couldn't have done it without Todd's dime. And then all Bronwyn can say is, I know. And she was like, I don't love that you're saying that, but I know. And it's like, she does that with Todd. And she does, like, that's why I say she married her. That's why I say Bronwyn married her mother, because Todd will say something snarky to her and she'll just be like, I know, but she won't check them. And I'm like, if I was her, I would have checked my mom in that moment and been like, girl, you not gonna be making them type of comments when I know for a fact we're paying to fly you to Utah and California monthly. And I'm also paying for daddy to be in a memory care facility. You gonna show me some type of respect up in this house. I'm like, girl, you're an adult. Bronwyn is 40. Check that lady. Okay, be respectful. Because I know sometimes people can be disrespectful. But I mean, like, there's respectful ways to check your parents. So the mom was like, well, you just needed Todd's support. And so then Bronwyn ends up saying in her confessional, sadly, this is not the first snide comment her mom has made. She was like, I still want my approval from my mom. She was like, I still really need my mom's approval and to be proud of me, but I wish I didn't. And I'm like, girl, that's why you need to go to therapy. That's why we need to take ourselves to therapy, okay? So then the mom is like, so I know we're dealing with your father, but at least you're going through this right now because it's going to happen to Todd. And I said, ew. Because here's the thing. I like dark humor. I have friends who say things that I'm like, ooh, girl, that could get you canceled. But it was actually funny. But like, that to me was just another dig at Bronwyn. Like, yeah, you married this old rich man. Be prepared because he's going to get dementia or Alzheimer's and die here soon too. Like, and Bronwyn was like, girl, I already get it outside, from the other people. I don't need it coming within the house. I was just like, girl, So the next scene we have is with Heather and Angie. Basically, Angie is going over to Heather's house. Heather is remodeling this one room now that her daughters are leaving the house. She's painting or trying to figure out what paint to put on the walls. Mind you, I thought I was colorblind and I was getting worried because when she first showed the paint, it just looked all white to me. But I think the 3 colors she picks was like a butter yellow, this blue color, and this pink color. The colors started to come once they put them on the wall, but I was worried. I said, my eyesight is already bad. I can't be going colorblind. So we see Angie pull up. They're talking, and pretty much Angie reveals to Heather that she's getting her Greek citizenship. We have Heather being like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. And Angie's like, thank you for being happy for me because I told Electra, and she basically said, girl, why are you making Greek your entire personality? And I don't care. And I said, dang, Electra. And here's the thing with Angie. I do love the fact that Angie is so proud of her heritage and her culture, but I do can understand as a 12 or 13-year-old girl how I would be annoyed if Angie was my mom and everything was Greek this, Greek that. Because it's like, girl, I'm getting my period, my boobs are coming in, my emotions are all up and down, I got acne on my face, and here you go throwing the Greek flag in my face, screaming Opa every 10 to 15 seconds. I would be annoyed with you too. Because at some point with Angie, it starts to feel performative and like you're wearing your culture as a costume instead of just living your life as a Greek. Like Angie's conversation that she had with her dad, I think was beautiful because it was him sharing what he really went through and the struggles that he faced as a young child living in Greece. But when Angie is always screaming it, it's kind of like, okay, girl, we get it. But then I also think about you're living in Utah, a very white, conservative, Christian state where if you are not doing what everybody is doing, then you basically are ostracized or you're an outsider. So I think it is actually very impressive that she was able to hold on to her heritage and she didn't feel the need to acquiesce or to succumb to the peer pressure of just conforming to what she sees around her when it comes to her culture and her religion. But I got where Alexa was coming from. Heather gives her good advice and basically tells her, girl, it's a phase, take your ego out of it, because Angie is struggling with the fact that her daughter is growing up, becoming more independent and no longer wants to be around her. She's just like, it's like a dagger to the heart. Like, I devoted my life to her and she don't want to be around me. And I was like, well, that was happens when you raise good children. They become independent and they start to go on and create their own lives. That's actually a good thing, Angie. So then we get to Heather. Heather to me is very calculated when she speaks about Lisa and the confrontations that she has with her, because she has issues with Lisa, but she's kind of like Bronwyn, where it's like, I still want to be cool with her to a certain degree. Because Heather ends up saying, when the whole blow up went down with Angie and Lisa, she was just like, I ran away. Angie ends up saying, Brittany threw me under the bus. And I'm like, why would you not think Brittany would throw you under the bus when Brittany, Meredith, and Heather were the only ones defending Lisa and you compared her to Jen Shaw? That was definitely going to get back to her. So Angie is just like, I just can't. So then Heather says, basically, we have a friend that's either in financial crisis, or the people are lying on her and she's being attacked, or she's been living a lie. And so then Angie is like, well, I want to give her compassion, but then I realize she's never going to change. My thing about Angie is I don't understand what her beef is with Lisa at this point. Last season, I understood, but it seems like at the reunion, did they come to some type of resolution? Not really, but it feels like they were neutral. But this season, it feels like Angie is like, she has this hard on for Lisa, and she is really trying to get her up on off it, like this show, by constantly attacking her and ganging up with Whitney and Bronwyn. Like, I understand why Whitney and Bronwyn have issues with Lisa this season, but I don't get where Angie's issue is when it comes to Lisa. But pretty much, Heather reveals to Angie, Lisa basically says that she lives a very different lifestyle with us, and she's lifestyles of the rich and famous. And she was like, I told her I didn't like that. And Angie says, see, she does this thing where she throws out these grenades and she diminishes, what we got going on. And it's just like, how can you defend that? So then Heather says in her confessional, basically, that she really values her relationship with Lisa and she works really hard on accepting Lisa for who she is. And honestly, the only reason why their relationship works is because she does not try to change Lisa. But at this point, it's getting harder for her to defend her. And then Heather ends up saying, Lisa was really hurt by you, Angie, because she thought you guys were really friends. And then Angie says, I did too. But then the way that Heather looked at Angie, it was kind of like, ooh, girl, you full of it. And it's starting to feel like I said, that Heather is very calculated with the things that she says. Like, when she talks to Lisa, she lies and says that pretty much it was just her defending her and not Meredith and Brittany. Not really having her back. She lies on Meredith. Then when she's having this conversation with Angie, she's riling Angie up, basically telling her, well, she says she lives a different lifestyle than us, and I told her I didn't like it. But you really weren't that very vocal with it. You were like, you don't live a different lifestyle with us, Lisa. Come on. When you should have been like, Lisa, cut the shit. You don't live a different lifestyle than us. You're just hurt by the fact that these women are talking poorly about you, and this is your way of trying to make yourself feel better. But it's not going to help, and it's not going to change what they said about you. So you need to come at this at a different way. But she's riling Angie up, so then when they get to the luncheon, Angie can be on 10. Heather is calculated. The next scene we have is of Lisa's package, okay? So we have the girls down at the Sky Blues Refuge or some ski lodge or whatever. Lisa says she brings her family out here all the time. Like, she loves this place. She only invited Amy, Mary, Meredith, and Heather to go skeet shooting, which I would have loved to do because I've never done it and it looks like a lot of fun. But she was just like, the women that I didn't invite are stabbing me in my back. And honestly, I fear that they would shoot me in my back if they had the opportunity to. So Heather is like, is this all who's coming? And she's like, well, no, I have things planned for lunch. The other ladies are coming. And Heather's like, that sounds terrifying. Because she also ends up saying, is this the elite group? Or so we're in an elite group. And it's like, you're such like a cornball and a pick-me, Heather. Because in one breath, you're saying that you can't defend Lisa and her actions, and it's hard to defend her as a friend, and you're rallying up Angie, but then also defend, like, you're confusing because it's like you don't really like Lisa, but you want to be close to her. And that's kind of scary too, because I'm like, why did you need to put emphasis on this being an elite group? Like, you want her validation so bad, and it's wild to me. And that's why Bronwyn and Heather are very similar. That's why they should be friends, to be honest. So, we end up seeing the other group Team D. They pull up to the lodge, and pretty much Angie is in her confessional being like, I don't get why we're doing this, because Lisa has already said what needs to be said, and there's nothing more that she can say when it comes to this situation. So I don't get why we're here. We see the other groups of ladies standing in the lobby waiting for the rest of the ladies. They pull up, Lisa and her pack, and they're like, hey guys, hey. So then Lisa was like, okay, we're right over here. So they open the doors to where they're eating dinner. Next thing you know, everyone is like gagged and really annoyed. Brahman is like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, because it's poster boards everywhere, like a science fair project, where Lisa has these posters where it's like dismiss, 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 and she has printed out her allegations against her. So the women are not impressed, and they're like, this is why you invited us here? And then Brahman is like, this is very childish, but I lived for it, in the sense of like, this is what Housewives is to me. Stupid press conferences, girls arguing about lawsuits. But honestly, Lisa's lawsuit, or her lawsuit luncheon, it flopped really badly. It was on the same lines as Karen Huger's situation, because it was just like nobody got any understanding, and it ended in someone storming off and arguing. Likened to when Gertie did the text messages. Your point wasn't conveyed, and it didn't come across, so it did not, like, you didn't hit the mark, you didn't hit the target, you actually flopped. So I was just like, yeah, Lisa, this wasn't it. So all the girls are making fun of like this situation. Mary's in her confessional saying, I'm confused, and I'm gonna stay confused and probably leave confused, and probably so, Mary. So everyone's like, why are there pictures of Lisa and John on a yacht? They're making fun of her being on a yacht. Angie's like, she has the picture so far back to prove that that was something that happened 10 years ago. And Mary is like, why are they on a yacht? Then she has pictures of them at a basketball game, and Lisa's like, that's when we were sitting courtside. But then Brahman's like, they weren't sitting courtside because those seats are in folded chairs. So there's that. So Meredith ends up saying, I wouldn't do this in a court of law, but, you know, I feel like Lisa is trying to convey a message, and the message is very loud, and it's very Lisa clear. Ends up saying it's now time to start litigations by Lisa Barlow in her confessional, and she's like, you know, I did this because I want the girls to know that allegations are not facts. She was like, you know, I'm here to discuss these things and clear up the accusations and the misinformation and the lies about me, and to give you guys clarity. So then Angie was like, so you brought us here to read all of this stuff? And Lisa's like, yeah. And they were like, for what? We already read this. But then Lisa's like, well, y'all didn't pay the $25 extra to read that these cases are dismissed. And she's like, dismiss, dismiss, dismiss. These cases are dismissed. So Brahman is like, are you saying these are fake cases? She's like, no, I'm saying they're dismissed, and there's none of your effing business. So then they're like, then why are we here if it's none of our business? So then Angie says, well, maybe I can help bring some clarity to this situation by asking you a few questions. So she ends up asking her this question where she was like, but the people are reading that there's another man that is paying, and then Lisa cuts her off, and Angie's like, shh. She's like, number 2, did that man pay off your car? Did he pay for the remodels of your like lounge? And do you owe him like 118 grand? So Lisa gets up and she's like, all of these are allegations. Like, we did business together, but that's it. There's none of this. So then Bronwyn is like, Lisa has this Photoshop stuff all up on these documents, but her and her lawyer are not denying that they took the money. They're denying that, like, you know, they owe it back or something to that effect. Brahman, this wasn't a bad confessional. This makeup, never wear green eyeshadow again. So Lisa is, you know, touching the poster boards, telling them, like, my lawyer has said these allegations against me are fanciful tales. And so then Angie's like, so the credit card, like, you didn't use his credit card? So then Amy chimes in and was like, well, they did business together, and normally people do share credit cards when y'all are doing business together. So Whitney raises her hand and she's like, Lisa, what part of this is dismissed? And so Lisa's like, it's still in the process, but all of these are dismissed. And so then Braun was in her confessional saying deny and dismiss are not interchangeable words. And that is true. They are not interchangeable words. So I think what Lisa is saying is that I've denied all these things, but the judge has I denied these things and they were dismissed. So I think she's talking about other lawsuits, because some people are saying that Lisa is being sued by 8 people. I've seen there's 5 lawsuits. All I know is Lisa has been online saying that these lawsuits were years ago, and the one that she's going through currently is the most recent one. So Lisa keeps saying it's a fanciful tales. Angie says in her confessional, Lisa keeps screaming about fanciful tales this, fanciful tales that, but she is not a princess locked in a castle, and she doesn't have a fairy godmother to bippity boppity boo these things away. Like, this is what's happening, and she's not making sense. So then Lisa is like, I don't think anybody here should be talking behind my back or anything of that nature. So then Angie's like, well, you've talked behind our backs, and I've heard you talk poorly about other people's businesses. And Lisa's like, no, I haven't. She was like, well, you talked behind Bronwyn's back. You dug up information about her. And they flash back to last season with the whole necklace. But I think Lisa feels like that was not digging, because she tells it that Emma came to her. She didn't go seeking out Emma. Emma came to her. So Brahman was like, you just didn't do it to me. You done it to other people. And then Lisa's like, Brahman, shut up. You full of shit. She was like, I don't like you, and I did not dig on you. So then she's like, girl, you're just upset that I busted you out about lying about jewelry that you could not afford and you didn't pay for. And then Brahman was like, no, you've been talking about me all this time, to the point where last time we saw each other, we got so bad that I had to go and apologize to Amy because of what happened at the house, because you called me a dick sucker. No, she said you called me a whore. And Lisa's like, no, I called you a dick sucker. She was like, I didn't call you a whore. She was like, you called me piggish, and you said I bragged about doing blowjobs. And then Lisa was like, you're just mad that I outed your misogynistic husband for being an asshole. And then Brahman was like, no, girl, you said I suck dick for money, and that's misogynistic. That's the female on female bullshit. But I think all of them are misogynistic. The way that they speak about Brittany, they've all called Brittany a whore and said she's a gold digger and a slut a couple of times. So this is not who's better. All of y'all are misogynistic. So then Lisa's like, honey, you just mad that you got busted out for lying. And then Brian was like, I've already explained to the women about that. So then Lisa's like, honestly, I would rather be at a Ben Affleck party with Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick at their movie premiere than just being camping with y'all and eating dry bagels, pretty much. So then Heather chimes in and she's like, none of that stuff matters. What matters is that Bronwyn dropped a lot of facts about Lisa, and we're here to clear it up. So then Bronwyn ends up saying, honestly, I hope none of the stuff that I said was true, and that you can clear up these cases. So then Lisa gets upset, and she gets up and pulls out the poster boards again, and she's like, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the cases that are against me, and I'll probably get sued again. She was like, can anybody sue you for anything? Yes. She was like, do I have money? Yes. She was like, do I love my businesses? Yes. Do I factor in my receivables? Yes. 100%. So then Whitney ends up saying in her confessional that Lisa is completely unhinged and she's gone off the rails. So then Angie is like, girl, I thought you brought us to this luncheon to, like, I don't know, talk about these things, but it just seems like you're not giving us anything. So then Lisa ends up saying, what were you hoping to gain by talking badly about me? And then Angie ends up saying, like, well, let me clear it up if you listen to me. And then Lisa keeps cutting Angie off by saying, what were you hoping to gain by talking behind me, behind my back? Then Mary ends up saying, we all had a conversation about you. So then Lisa's like, it's a 2-part question. What were you hoping to gain by talking about badly behind my back? And objectively, like, why? So then, Angie ends up saying that, like, you talk poorly about people's business. And Lisa's like, no, I have not. And so Angie gets frustrated. And she's like, Lisa, you're so frustrating. Like, you're always making me want to get out my chair. You don't listen. You're one of my closest friends. And it's just so frustrating being around you. And then Lisa ends up saying, like, you're frustrating as well. And then Angie gets really upset. And they start going back and forth. And she's like, you know what? You're the one that's out here comparing me to Jen Shaw, but you're the one that wants to look like her. So then Angie's like, you're saying that I want to look like Jen Shaw? She was like, yeah, you have her brow, girl. Then Angie gets up. And Angie, you constantly getting up is getting old and getting played out. It's similar to when you kick down your chair at the Harley Davidson museum last season. It doesn't have the same additive effect. And I'm like, you need to start, like, if Lisa's not standing up, then stay seated. Just stay seated, Angie. So Angie's like, I've been going to my brow girl for 14 years. And so then Lisa's like, you have the same brow girl, the same lash girl, the same nail girl. And so they're arguing about this. Mary ends up saying the brow girl is the best. Brittany's trying to get into the conversation where she was like, is this the same brow girl that Jared was talking to? Nobody's paying her attention, but it was the same. Then the waiter comes up and she's trying to get the girls' orders, but they are going at it. Amy is trying to tell them, can we like pipe down for a minute so we can order? And eventually they calm down. Then Whitney ends up saying, can I ask a clarifying question? So what are we supposed to do when when we're getting tagged by people about you and your business and things of that nature? Are we not supposed to bring it up? So then Meredith chimes in and she's like, well, Whitney, there's a lot of things out there about you and accusations about you, but that doesn't make it true. So then Whitney's like, oh, so now you're piping up, Meredith? And Meredith's like, what are you talking about? And Whitney's like, you were completely silent on the camping trip. And Meredith's like, no, I was not. They even show flashbacks of Meredith saying we should let Lisa deal with this, and her saying that what Jen Shaw did and what Lisa is going through are not the same thing, and that Lisa told us everything was okay, and you guys need to have a one-on-one conversation with her when she's here. But everyone at the table, to me, proceeds to lie on Meredith. Even Mary jumped in and said that Meredith didn't do enough. Then Brittany is like, well, I was actually kind of surprised, Meredith, that you weren't speaking up because you are a lawyer and it would have been nice to get your perspective. So Meredith said, I was talking and you just wasn't listening. Maybe next time you should listen. And so she kind of shuts Brittany up for a minute. And then Lisa is like, I believe you. Because Meredith ends up saying, like, they're trying to get in between us. And she's like, I believe you. I don't know if Lisa really believed her, but I think Lisa at this point realized she doesn't have that many allies on this cast, so she got to take what she can get. So the conversation pipes down. And this is when I'm like, if Lisa could be this calm when she's dealing with Angie and Bronwyn, she would be able to put up a better fight, but because she gets so riled up when she's dealing with Angie and Bronwyn and she's not a quick reader, she always loses the fights with them. Because Whitney ends up, so Lisa ends up saying, Whitney ends up saying to Lisa, this doesn't prove anything, Lisa, basically saying this luncheon was a flop. And it was. And Lisa says, you know what, how is unwinding your business, Whitney? And so Bronwyn jumps in and she's like, don't talk about her business. But I was like, Bronwyn, shut up. Because y'all are talking about these lawsuits which are dealing with Lisa's business. So why can't we not talk about Whitney's business? If we can talk about Lisa's lawsuits, then we can talk about Whitney's failed business. And I don't think the women are understanding that y'all are opening up the floodgates for everybody on this cast to talk poorly about each other's business and do it very fragrantly, because y'all are just like really going at Lisa. And I'm like, let's not hope one of y'all get a lawsuit. That's going to be open season and you can't really fight back really, because y'all are doing it to Lisa. So Bronwyn's like, don't talk about her business, and you're deflecting. And then Lisa says again, so how is it unwinding your business? So then Whitney ends up saying, you don't know anything about my business. I'm getting out of it. So then Lisa's like, so no one put money into your company? No one did a $10,000 buy-in? And Whitney's like, Justin and I did. No one did anything. So then Lisa ends up saying, well, Justin, if you and Justin put money into it, then why are there people on TikTok complaining and bitching out about y'all? So then Whitney's like, ooh, look, she's a digger. There it is. But then this to me invalidates what Whitney says, because you just asked, are we not supposed to bring up stuff that we're tagged in? And Lisa's like, no, people have tagged me in the things that I saw online about you. So it's like y'all are both arguing the same thing at this point, if you ask me. So then Whitney ends up saying TikTokers and lawsuits are not the same thing. And then she says, well, I haven't brung up the facelift that Lisa has got. You can't, because Utah is Plastic City Central, just like Miami is BBL Central. Y'all over there at the age of 20 getting Botox, fillers, and facelifts. So now, could Lisa have a better facelift? Yes, she could, because it's not doing her any favors. So then Lisa ends up telling Whitney, you're the last one that should be talking to me about my business. So then Whitney says she's scared. So it's like y'all are taking pride in Lisa being worried about her business failing. And it's like, I get people don't like Lisa. I get Lisa is a bitch. She can be nasty. She can be narcissistic and all of these things. But it's also like, it's weird to me that fans expect Lisa to just sit there and just like crumble and acquiesce to a group of people that don't like her. She's at a table full of people that want to see her crumble, and y'all are expecting her to just like acquiesce. And I'm like, realistically, if I was Lisa, I would be cussing all of them out, because what you're not gonna do is sit here and see me crumble. You're not. Like, I'm gonna say what I need to say. And I'm going to fight back whether I'm right or wrong, because I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. And that's what it is with Lisa. So Lisa's like, I'm not scared. And then she starts to get really like wound up. And she was like, the judge said that all of this stuff was dismissed. And she starts yelling. So then she's like, you know what? You lied on me, Whitney. And that's just what it is. You're a liar and you lie on people. So then Whitney gets angry with Lisa, and she said, you don't know anything or what you're talking about. And so I think that's when Lisa says, you get your stuff from Alibaba. And that's really what sent Whitney over the edge. So then Lisa said, you're disgusting, you redhead. So then Whitney's like, you redneck. And at this point, I'm like, Whitney is searching for a moment. So then they start yelling and screaming at each other. And then Lisa ends up saying, you know what? I'm done with you. I'm done with all your lies and all of that stuff. So then Whitney gets up. She's like, I'm fighting for Wild Rose Beauty. I'm fighting for my business. She was like, I did not pile on. She didn't defend you. It was not a pile on, Lisa. And then she throws her napkin and it hits Lisa in the face. And I said, Whitney, you doing too much at this point. Like, you're doing a lot. So then Whitney gets so angry because Lisa's like, you're a liar. And then she ends up, and then Meredith says, here she goes. So then Whitney comes around the table and she gets this close to Lisa. And she's like, I'm paying off my debts. I'm paying my way through it. I'm paying off my partnerships. I have money to do so. Then she grabs Lisa's wrist because Lisa's like, girl, get out of my face. And then Lisa pushes her away. And she's like, bye. And then Mary's like, girl, come sit down. Like, come sit down. And then Whitney's like, I'm so triggered. And then she walks away. I'm triggered. And I'm like, you're a child. You are a child. And I don't get why you think it's okay for you to pick and prod and poke at Lisa, but when she does it back to you, it's a problem. And I also don't like this whole excuses that everyone likes to give to people when they go against Lisa. Like for Whitney, people are like, well, she's had a mother's rage because Lisa talked about her hair. And, she dyed her hair red or orange for her daughter because her daughter was getting bullied. Is it great that the little girl's getting bullied? No, it's unfortunate. But we're not going to act like hair color is an oppression. Okay? We're not going to act like being called redhead is a slur. Okay? Whitney is a child, and if Lisa would have did the same, because I've seen it, when Lisa walked away in Mexico, everyone was calling Lisa pathetic and childish. But when Whitney gets angry to the point where she throws something in someone's face and then she grabs their wrist, it's okay because you don't like Lisa. That's the double standard, and that's why I don't listen to fans because it's like, y'all can't be fair across the board. Whitney was doing too much. She was upset that Lisa got the best of her, and she couldn't handle it, and so she walked away. The same way when Lisa got it with Bronwyn, and Bronwyn got the best of her, and she walked away. You lost the fight because you walked away, because you couldn't handle what was being said to you. So Whitney's a child, and she has this weird obsession with Lisa. Because I don't get why it's okay for y'all to dog her out about her lawsuits and her business, but she can't dog you out about a failed business. Miss me with that. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in them comments below. Subscribe and like the video. And I guess hype me up. I don't know how that thing works. But yeah, that's it. Deuces.